Hey besties and bosses, happy Tuesday. How's everyone's week going? I'm excited to hang with y'all. I always love when we get to hang live. I am getting ready to move. I moved this month. I found my dream apartment. I feel like we had a live a few weeks ago, maybe last month, and I was talking about manifesting my apartment. I manifested it, y'all. I'm so excited. But that also means we've got a different backdrop going on because furniture is being moved and we're packing things up. So over the next few weeks, we'll probably have a slew of different backdrops. And then, hey, Tiffany, this live stream is for you. We're talking about sales today. But I was just saying, I'm getting ready to move, and so that's why we've got different backdrops over the next few weeks. We'll probably be in all sorts of different places, and then when I move, I can't wait to share that with y'all a little bit because that feels like a manifesting win for myself, and I'm excited to be able to share all of that with you. Last week on our live, Tiffany asked about how to sell, and so she prompted this live stream because I think there's a lot of questions around selling. I hope it's okay, Tiffany, that I'm saying that you said it live, so I think that's okay. I think there's just a lot of questions that come up around sales, and I think there's also a lot of frustration that comes up around, like, if you're posting and then you're hearing crickets and it's kind of like, WTF, why isn't this working for me? Feel free to share if that feels true, questions, anything that comes up. Tiffany says, hi Kim, yay. So many yays back. I'm excited to chat about this. What I thought would be fun is I'm going to use a case study of actually my boyfriend who's been selling stuff because we're moving, because it's a really good example to talk through some sales principles. Because what I find happens quite a bit for my clients and just overall in the online space when it comes to selling and sales and putting ourselves out there is there's sort of this mentality of, if I'm good enough, then, and I put stuff out there, that should generate sales for me in my business. You don't have to say me too or out yourself, but if you are watching now or on the replay, I'd love to hear if you've ever felt that way. I know, I'll share very transparently. I know when I started my business, I definitely had that mindset of, if I'm good enough at what I do and I post things and I put stuff out there, that should be enough to bring me sales. And this is a really screwy mindset because this mindset also made me think, then if I am good enough and I'm not, or if I'm putting myself out there and I'm not getting sales, that means I'm not good enough. That means there's something wrong with me. Maybe that means I'm not doing this right. Maybe that means I'm not meant to do this. Same thing happened when I was acting, like such an easy mindset to get into. Again, you don't have to share, but I'm always curious to hear if this is something you've ever believed. The example I used in the email for this is that whole, if you've ever seen The Field of Dreams, that whole if you build it, they will come mentality, which is a beautiful, beautiful quote for a movie. But what it teaches us and what it says is essentially, if you put something out there and it's good enough, people will just come pouring and flooding through the doors. And I think this is a lot of what's taught online and just that belief that's sent around, except for that kind of misses a really, really big part of business, and it has it completely backwards. What that does is it asks your business to give you the evidence that you're good enough. And quite honestly, in order to sell, it's in complete reverse. First, you have to believe you're good enough and be so bought in of what you're selling and know that it's of high value and worth so that you feel good enough to go out there and actively market and sell it to generate those sales. And so this whole mindset, it literally has it backwards, and it causes such self-sabotage because it's sort of like, well, if I build it, they will come. So if I'm good enough, they will come. When people don't come flooding through the door, it's like, well, shit, I must not be good enough. Maybe I need to quit, when it's literally the opposite. And that's why I want to dive into five things today that kind of bust this whole mindset and talk about some specifics that will actually help you sell. Tiffany says, I keep thinking that maybe this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Yes, thank you for sharing that, Tiffany. It's exactly, and Tiffany, I love you for sharing that. I hear this from clients all the time. And first year of business, I know this is what, like, I knew then, this was like years ago, I knew then this is what I was meant to be doing, and this story still popped up because it's sort of like, well, where's the evidence? And what we can see here is this puts a lot of pressure on your business to give you your own self-worth and that trust and that evidence, when really, again, it's completely in reverse. In order to sell, first and foremost, you have to believe you are good enough. You have to believe your product or service is good enough. You have to trust that it is good enough to put a price tag on to go out and sell it. Let me know if this is making sense in terms of the reverse. And I think, again, this comes a little back, we were talking about manifesting when I first hopped on. This kind of goes into that whole manifesting universe thing, because I think in schools of manifesting, there is a little bit of this, like, but if I just believe, like, if I'm just good enough, then the universe will show me with sales. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. I'm all about some woo. I am like the universe and me, we're like really good buds. I just manifested an amazing apartment. And let me tell you, to manifest that amazing apartment, I had to believe before that apartment showed up that that was possible for me. And I had to go actively make that happen. Let me know if this is making sense. And then we will dive into those 5 things you need to know to sell. I'm not going to give you like a step-by-step how-to because it's going to be different for everyone, but these are 5 universal truths for selling that all of you can apply. And as I'm going through these, let me know if you have questions. So the kind of case study example I want to use here, we're moving. My boyfriend, who I call him my boyfriend, but he's like kind of my husband almost. We've been together. I think he would say that. He's in the other room. We've been together for a long time. Boyfriend seems like a funny term to use. My significant other, who I love dearly, is obsessed with board games, and we have over 250 board games, not like Monopoly, like, I don't know, they take like an hour and a half to learn. Very intense board games. They're so much fun to play. This is his passion. This is like his hobby. He knows a lot about them. This is a collection of his. And he decided there's a lot we've played. He really wants to curate this collection, get rid of some, kind of Marie Kondo it, get rid of some of the games that aren't, his favorite anymore, to make space for some kind of holy grail games. And moving is a good time to do it. So he decided he's going to sell, or wanted to sell, about 150 of those games. And Tiffany says we are co-creators with the universe. We are so co-creators with the universe. I believe that the longer I'm in business. We'll have to do like a universe woo live sometime. Anyway, so my boyfriend's selling about 150 games. And within the last week, he has sold 125 board games and literally made thousands of dollars. I think he's, like, these are board games we're talking about. I think he's made 2,500 or 3,000 on board games in the last week. So this is kind of the story. This is the case study we're going with, because I think it's a really great example. Sometimes it's easier to see outside of all of our, like, we talk about my business all the time, and sometimes it's easier to see outside of the online business because he only sold using the online space. And so it's helpful to see outside of our business. Here's a case study of someone who had some stuff pretty much sold out in about a week. And I want to break down 5 things he did that really are core principles of selling. Because what he did not do is decide, if these games are good enough and I post it, people will just show up and buy the games. If he had done that, I promise you, he probably would have sold 1 freaking game. And I know that because he's been selling games for the last year, and it's like a game sells here or there. Once a week, once a month, one of his games sell. 125 games have gone out our door in a week. That's a lot of freaking board games, and like just a lot of space that opened up, quite honestly, real estate in New York City. So just a really great example to see, like, just to take this mentality and flip it on its head. Those board games have been equal value the whole time. It's not like suddenly they become, like, he's good enough to sell them, or those board games are better. It's just he applied the 5 principles, or these 5 things you need to know, and suddenly 125, like, what is that, 125% increase of 1 game sold the week before, 125 games went out the door. Again, what I think is really common, and this is what happens most of the time, is it would have been really easy for him just to, like, make a post. He's in a Board Game Geek. It's literally called Board Game Geek, y'all. A Board Game Geek, it's like an online community. It would have been really easy just to put 1 post out there and then expect people to buy. But that's not at all what he did. So first principle here I think is really important with selling is he got really clear on his offer, and he made it very clear to people what he was selling. This sounds so basic, but I think it's really important to hear, because what I find happens a lot when people are frustrated with what they're selling is when I'm working with clients and we take a look, a lot of times there isn't a lot of clarity around the offer. And if they have clarity, it's not always really being clearly articulated to the people they're selling to. For people to buy from you, they need to really understand in a very clear and simple way what it is you're selling and why they should want to buy it. Like, why is it important to them? And again, when we have this whole, if they buy it, or if I build it, they will come mentality, this often gets missed because we're waiting for someone else to validate why they should buy. And quite honestly, when you're selling and marketing, it's in reverse. You have to let people know what's in it for them and why they should buy. So what he did is he went through all of these games. He split them into 3 tabs. in general with selling, 3 offers max. Once you have more than 3 offers, it's really confusing for people and people get into decision fatigue. This is just a great like general stat to know. Once you have more than 3 offers, people's brains explode a little, and studies have shown the more offers you have, I think people think the more offers I have, the more shit people will buy from me. The more offers you have, people go into decision fatigue. Studies show they don't buy less, they buy nothing. So knowing this idea, he broke all of his games up into 3 categories, and he categorized them by 3 price points. So yes, there were 100, I don't know, there's 150 games or something, let's say, that he's selling, but he made it really easy for people buying to see the offer by 3 different price points by categorizing them. Is this making sense? So when he posted this, again, all of these games, instead of people like, oh my gosh, how do I sift through all of these games? It really visually seemed like there are 3 offers to choose from. Within that, they could pick and choose the games. So really helped people to see what they wanted to buy. Let me know if this is making sense. And let me also just make sure, because I want to make sure I get everything for you guys today, because I made some big notes here. Within the way he structured his offer, he also built in incentives. And I want you to hear this because I think there's so much noise around giving away free stuff online or giving incentives and how this is a bad thing. And I think what we forget, it's like the whole, if I'm good enough, people should just want to throw money at me. And it's like, no, you are good enough, period. And as a business owner selling something, you have to help people understand why they should part with their hard-earned money. And incentives are a really great way to do that, because I just got an apartment, I just moved because they gave me an incentive. Like, that is just how the human brain is wired. Who doesn't love a little incentive to spend some money? So he built in some incentives. He made a very clear offer. He didn't offer, even though he was offering hundreds of things, he made it seem like there were only 3 things to choose from. And then he incentivized buyers by, if they bought a certain number of games, they got a free game off of his list of free games. So what this does is it tells people, hey, you get to here's this great deal. I made this really easy for you to pick and choose, and here's something free, or here's a discount, here's something you can have. So first thing there to understand, when you're selling, always online or offline, make your offer very clear and start to articulate it in a way that makes it clear for people why they should spend money. Instead of asking them to prove to you that you're good enough. Really important mindset difference there. I always say you have to be more bought on what it is you're selling than the person you're selling to. Make it really clear. Don't offer more than 3 things. If you can only offer one thing, whatever that next thing for someone in your sales process or sales journey is. And then think about, how can I incentivize this? That's always going to serve you when you're selling. Let me know if this is making sense before I move on to the next one, because I want this to be helpful for you all, and let me know if you have any questions. The other thing here that I think, just before we do move on to the next thing, that I think is helpful to hear is, in sales psychology, there's something called the law of reciprocity, which basically says this. They've done many studies on this. When you give something away for free, people feel this need to reciprocate. This is something I'm sharing. Do not manipulate this, but it is just a human quality. So there's a lot of BS online about don't give stuff away for free. If you give something away for free, people will never value it. When quite actually, studies show not only will people value it, they'll feel this human need to reciprocate, which means they're going to be more likely to buy. This is sales psychology. This is human psychology. So this is something that my boyfriend was employing when he knew, whether he knew this consciously or because I talk about sales all the time because I'm a geek about it, but this is just something he knew. If I give away something for free, people are just gonna want to buy more. That's just how we are. Just like if I'm incentivized, I just want to spend more money. If you're gonna give me, I don't know, free makeup when I buy makeup, I want to spend more money. It's just how we are wired as humans. If you give someone a compliment, don't they want to give you a compliment back? Same when you're selling. So I think this is just, bless you, just a really helpful core principle for sales and how to sell. Okay. All right. So the next thing here that my boyfriend did really well, whether he knew it or not, that is just a universal truth for selling that is very helpful to know. He employed the law, the concept, the sales buying psychology of scarcity and social proof and I don't know what the right term for this is, but I call it FOMO. Hey Beverly, nice to have you here. And whoever else is here, say hi. Let me know if this is resonating, y'all. You're quiet, maybe you're taking notes, but let me know if this is resonating. Let me know if you have questions, please. Always happy to answer. I want to make sure this is helpful for you. So, what was it? Okay, he was employing scarcity, social proof, quite honestly a little urgency, and I call it FOMO. Urgency is FOMO. So one of the first things he did is in this document he made with all the games, with those 3 tabs, no more than 3 offers, he made it clear when offers were pending and when games were sold. And this was something that every single person could see in real time. And this was brilliant, and here's why. There was only one of each game available. So when he posted this, he made it as like a Google spreadsheet that people could go in and see. And they could see this in real time. How many people were in there? That's social proof. We are followers as humans. When I put a testimonial up, when you put a testimonial up, like, we want social proof. We want to see, like, is there evidence that other people want this thing that I'm buying? So having a Google Doc that other people could be in, when there are 6 people in there, that is social proof other people want these games. What that does, when there is only one of every game, each game is scarce, it creates a sense of urgency where if you want something, you know, shit, there's 6 other people in here. I better jump on this, or this game because a lot of these games are rare games. They're not in print or in make or whatever you call that anymore. You know, oh, one of these 5 people could grab this game. I better get on and make a decision. This is really, really, really important to hear, because when it comes to buying psychology, when it comes to people buying, us humans, I'm a human, you're a human, we suck at making decisions, especially when it comes to parting with money. Parting with money feels like pain. As humans, we are wired to avoid pain. So that means we suck at making a decision about spending our money. Who has not deliberated over and over and over again over like a really inexpensive purchase? I know I have. It is like ridiculous sometimes. I'm trying to think of a recent purchase like this. I just bought some basic t-shirts. It's hot, sweaty New York summer. Basic t-shirts that I like deliberated over hitting the buy button, and it took the, what is it, like the ad where they like find you and then they send you emails. It took so many of those for me to actually buy the purchase. Not because I couldn't afford the t-shirts, not because like we're talking like a plain white t-shirt, but because I'm a human and it's just hard to make those decisions sometimes. This is just how humans are with buying behavior, and it's really important to know. So as people selling things in business, we want to do things that help people make a decision, yes or no, so they get out of that decision fatigue. Creating some of that social proof and that sense of urgency and scarcity. I've got a Google Doc. You can see how many people are in there. There's only one of each. You can see that as soon as someone grabs that game you want, it's gone. That helps people make a decision and get out of that decision fatigue that has us obsess over a white t-shirt for 2 weeks. Because they know if I don't jump on that game I want that's out of print somewhere, that game's going to be gone. So these are things to start thinking about for whatever you sell. Obviously, you can't employ all of these techniques. You might not have only one of something you're selling, but these are things to start thinking about with what you're selling. Other thing he did within this model is he created some FOMO and some more social proof. So in the Google document, when someone would let him know they wanted a game, he would write pending next to the game, which again meant if you were thinking about buying a game and you start seeing pending show up, you see, oh, there are other people buying. These games are actually going away. I need to make a decision. It also means if you're the person who's pending, because he asked we live in New York City, he asked everyone basically to pay him before showing up to the apartment to buy the games. It's COVID. We didn't want to mess with this. So they had to basically buy before seeing the game. But if you see pending and you see other people in there, that's a lot of incentive to hurry up and pay that deposit so that game says sold, so that someone else doesn't actually jump in and give him the deposit. Do you see where I'm going with this? So it was just a really beautiful way and completely authentic, completely in integrity for him to create some of that FOMO, some of that scarcity, some of that urgency, and with people who are actively buying games and with people who are hopping into that Google document, because when you see things you want going away, what happens? Fear of missing out kicks in, right? When fear of missing out kicks in, what happens? You start making a decision on the thing, like that next game you don't want to miss, and that triggers people to buy. Tiffany says, yes, I think she's speaking to this making sense. Thank you, what I was asking. I need a sip of water. real quick, and then y'all let me know if you have questions. I never turn the AC on in here like low enough when I'm live, so I always get red about halfway through when we're live. So you'll have to excuse me, I get sweaty as we go. Okay, let's go on. I said I have 5 things. I probably have like more like 10. We'll see how many we get through today. Let me know if this is helpful though, and if you want me to repeat anything. Tiffany says, how could you implement this in a service-based business? Great question. So I think something really important here before, and then I'll answer this, really important to say here, if you are here, if you are in my Facebook group, if you are watching this, I know you're a heart-centered entrepreneur. We are people who want to be in integrity. So the first rule of sales, and the most important thing I think is sales, is being of service. And we always want to come from a place of integrity. So when we think about things like scarcity, urgency, my rule is always do this in a way that is 100% true. People can feel the difference. And the reason sales get a bad rep is people take things like this and they're like, I only have 1 spot left when they have 45. That's icky and gross selling. That's false scarcity. That's lying. That's why sales gets a bad rap. So before I answer this, like, this just feels very important to say for all of us here. Please don't hear this wrong. All of these tools and these ideas and this like buying psychology and selling psychology, we want to remember as heart-centered business owners who are coming from a place of integrity, how can I apply this to my business in a way that is true and authentic? So with that, how might you implement this in a service-based business? So with something like urgency, it might be something like, I do this often. I sometimes only have, I do coaching intensives. I have limited coaching intensives that are available because they are literally intensive and my schedule is very full. So I might say something like, this would be scarcity and urgency. I might say this month I have 1 coaching intensive available if you book by, and I might say if you book by this date, you get a special rate. I don't do that currently, but that's something I might do. That would be a way to authentically create some urgency and scarcity. There's 1 spot left. There's 1 spot left this month. And if I wanted to incentivize it, I could say, and if you book by this date, which again ties it to a deadline and creates a little of that urgency, then you get this $50 deal off. Does that make sense? So that's a way you could apply that to a service-based business. A lot of times, if you, let's say you have 5 spots left, say I have 5 spots left, that's still a scarce offer. That's a way to create scarcity. And that social proof piece, what I would say is that's more like the way like people being in the Google Doc and that social proof and like this is sold. I think that more comes from things like, can you share client testimonials? Can you share social proof of what you're doing as a service-based entrepreneur, what you're doing with your clients, and give evidence that like other people want this, and look at what's happening for other people. That's a way to really utilize that social proof element in your sales. Hey Carol, nice to have you. It's so funny. I don't know why Facebook lets me know some people who are watching and not other people, but nice to have you here. Tiffany, let me know if that makes sense and if that answers your question. I'm happy to answer a follow-up question. Okay, so the next one we talked about, or the next one we kind of talked about at the beginning here, but I think it's worth speaking to more directly. And that is my boyfriend believed in his offer. He was so sold on what he was selling, and he knew it was a good deal, and he was selling something he wanted himself, y'all. And so because of that, he was able to sell in a different way, and he went out and actively sold. So this is kind of a 2-parter. I want to talk about active sales, and I want to talk about the belief in sales. So this is this idea we were talking about at the beginning of the live stream. So often we're waiting for other people to give us the evidence that what we're selling is good enough. And it has to be the other way around. You have to start with, this is good enough, and I want this so bad, I am like excited to sell it. That is the mindset my boyfriend had with these games. He loves these games so much. He's played them all. He knows how great they are. I think he went through a little grief process letting go of some of them. He knew, like, I am so excited to sell this to people because I can't wait for them to experience this game because it's such a fucking amazing game. That's the energy you want to bring to your sales process. If you have that first, you can sell 125 games, no problem, or coaching, or whatever it is. The reason I'm fully booked, there are other reasons. Part of the reasons it's easy for me to sell coaching is I believe in it so much. I believe in my work. I believe in what it does for my clients. I love what I do, and I also really, really believe in what I'm selling. So it makes it really easy for me to be so passionate and sell it. So that's that first piece there. Does that make sense? Can you see how, like, even with something like board games, it's so much easier to sell board games and to be excited to sell it and to show up and sell it when you're like, I can't wait till you have this game. Tiffany says, thank you. It does answer my question. Okay, good. So that's the first piece. Like, this is like sales 101, like the first rule to sales. Any sales course you take is always going to say, first, you have to fall in love with what you're selling. And I think for service-based entrepreneurs, which I know a lot of you are, and for a lot of my heart-centered entrepreneurs, that's the trickiest, hardest part of sales, right? Because a lot of times we feel like we're selling ourselves, and that's where that whole self-worth piece comes in. So I see you, I feel you, I hear you, I am you. This is what I work with my clients on every day, and that is such a big part of sales, first and foremost. The other piece there is then because he felt that way, he went out and actively sold. When I think of sales, I always break sales into passive sales and active sales. Passive selling is doing things like on your website, you have your offer, or just posting something on your Facebook page once and hoping it's there. Active sales is actively going out to make the sale. It's actively, I'll tell you what he did, but it's actively following up with someone. It's actively getting on the phone and calling someone. It's actively DMing someone. It's actively sending an email to that person who you know would really benefit from what it is you have to offer. We need both in business, quite honestly. You can't always be actively selling. You can't always be passively selling. Passive selling is really that if I build it, they will come mentality. If you want to sell more, active selling this is something I'm always coaching my clients around, is how can we lean into actively selling more. So for my boyfriend, what this looked like was he didn't just post it into this Board Game Geek community once and hope that enough people would see his link buried in this group, jump onto his Google Doc, and throw him money for his games. He went out and actively messaged people. He went out and actively left comments for people who had put requests for games to let them know, hey, you want this game, I'm selling it, or hey, you want this game, I have a game just like it that you might like. He went out and actively took action to message and reach out to people to sell that game. Really, really important to hear. This is something I talk a lot with my clients when they're launching. We always look at how can we do more than the bare minimum and actively sell. And so often, like, that is the rocket fuel for sales. This is like something I'm always thinking, like, how can I actively sell and not just come from a passive place? But to actively sell, you first need that place where you're so excited to actively sell, because when you're excited about what you're selling, it doesn't feel slimy, right? It feels like you're doing someone a favor, where you're like, I've got this awesome board game. I want to make sure you don't miss out on it because there's only one and I'm selling it at this ridiculously awesome rate. Are you interested? That doesn't feel slimy. When you're like, ugh, I don't know if this is good enough and this is going to be so annoying and no one should pay me for this, but I hope they do so that I feel good enough about myself, you're never going to want to go out and actively sell. Does that make sense? Let me see what these comments are, and then I'll continue here. Ruth says, it's the unbelievable power of cosmic energy. It can't be faked either. Yes, thank you, amen. You cannot fake energy. It is the truth. We were talking at the beginning how, like, the longer I'm in business, the more I believe in woo, the more I believe in energy. The more I believe in energy and how we back it up with action, I should say, because I think otherwise it's confusing and we think it's just about, like, meditating and being in that energetic state. You need both. But yes, it's all about that cosmic energy, and you can't fake it. People pick up on the difference. People can tell. All of us can tell. We've all read things that are in air quotes like done the right way, where we're like, there's something here that's really weird. There's something I'm picking up, like this doesn't smell right. So yes, Ruth, thank you for that. And Tiffany says, I think that's part of my problem. I don't know how to actively sell. That's awesome. We're talking about this now, and we'll get to chat a little bit more about that, Tiffany. I think what part of, like, knowing with actively selling is there's no, like, wrong or right way to do it. I think with sales, I think a lot of people think it's like, well, I don't know how to sell or market because I don't have an MBA or because I didn't take some course. And I think we forget how much of selling is really human, based on human relationships. And really being excited and making offers for what it is you have to offer. And the active part is just actively going out there and connecting with people and making that offer. And there's lots of ways to do that. And there's lots of ways that are wonderful to do that. And then there are ways like cold DMing people, or the emails I get every day from people who are marketing to me. That's kind of gross and weird. But hey, hats off to anyone who's taking that action. But I think the important piece here is to even have the awareness that that active selling is important, and not just to sit in passive selling. And so I think it's a great check-in for everyone watching now or on the replays. Have I just been passively selling? That might be why I'm posting things and hearing crickets, because I'm just expecting my post to do all the work for me. And sometimes we gotta do, like, I'm here, this is more than a post. I'm showing up and actively selling by giving some free content. I'm giving you a lot of social proof. I'm giving you all value. You know what I mean? Like, this is a way to actively sell. Does that make sense, Tiffany? And we can give more, I can give more examples if anyone needs. Okay, so actively selling. The next, I forgot what number we're on. I've given you guys probably more than we need at this point, but we're going to keep going if this is helpful. Let me know if you have questions. The next one here that kind of piggybacks off what I was literally just saying that feels important, that is a core piece to sales, and I think this will simplify a lot of the active selling. Tiffany says yes, awesome, thank you. This, I think, will simplify a lot of the idea of actively selling, and I think this will simplify the concept of sales a lot and how to sell. Because again, I think this is one of those things that is really easy to overcomplicate. I will share transparently, first year of business, I swore I sucked at sales. And the reason I thought I sucked, and I thought I didn't know how to sell. And the reason for that is because I didn't have some certificate from someone telling me, you now know how to sell. When in reality, I am excellent at sales. When I look back over my life, waited tables for a decade, I was an actress for a decade. Both of those are both basically sales. I worked as an agent, sales, and now I'm a business owner where I have sold successfully, sales. But I think there's just this story where it's like, if I don't have that PhD degree, MBA, I must not know how to sell. Not true. Let's just dispel that. You don't need a degree to sell well. And when I take a look at like what is at the core of sales and what allows people to sell well, it is relationships. Relationships is where selling magic happens. And so when I take a look at my boyfriend selling those board games, what he did really well, and part of the reason he was able to sell 125 games in a week with ease, is he was actively selling, but he was also leveraging the power of relationships. So what I mean by this is he's been building relationships in this community for a while. He didn't just show up in this group because he wanted to sell something and hope that a bunch of people that didn't know him were going to buy from him. And I say this with love, but I think this is where a lot of entrepreneurs get in their own way, as they show up before they've built relationships, post something, hear crickets, which is the name of the live stream, right? And they get really frustrated and think that means they're not good enough or no one wants to buy, when really all that's happened is there's no relationship and no one trusts you yet, because why would they? We're on the internet. Like, would you trust someone you've never met before without, like, you've never talked before? Probably not. We need to build relationships. That whole know, like, and trust thing is, we say that for a reason. People need to know, like, and trust someone to buy them. Studies show people will buy from people they know, like, and trust more than someone they don't know, like, and trust, even if that other person has a better product or service, which is why it kind of has nothing to do with how good you are. We're just gonna be in integrity. So is this making sense? Like, those relationships, I always say connection is at the core of a successful, sustainable business. Those relationships, that's the core of selling. That is the core of making money in any business. If you look at any business, when you think about marketing and selling and what people spend a lot of money on, at the end of the day, it's relationship building. So my boyfriend leveraged the power of relationships. He had already been building relationships. So what he did is he reached out to people he already had relationships with, who had already bought games for him, or who he had already communicated with and never sold anything to, but he had a relationship with, to say, hey, I'm selling these games. Come take a look. That right there is active selling. It can be that simple. But the reason that also worked is he didn't just reach out to some stranger. These are people he talked to before. Maybe he'd sent left a comment about a game or whatever before. He was leveraging those power of relationships. And he was leveraging the power of people who he'd already built know, like, and trust with, who had already bought a game from him and seen this game is what he says it is. Like, it's been taken care of. It's in good shape. People like that, he already had a relationship with. They already trusted him. It then made it so much easier for him to leverage his knowledge of what they liked, that relationship. He already had intimate knowledge of, hey, they like games with, I don't know, dice and cards. This is a horrible way to describe games. But he could then reach out to someone, leverage that power of the relationship, and say, hey, I'm selling these games, and you bought this game about dragons. You really liked it because it had these pieces, or like this sort of form of gameplay. there's 3 games on here that are really rare. I think you would really like because you liked that other game. That is active selling, y'all. And that is leveraging the power of relationships. It can be that easy. Like, he did that for one person, and one person bought, I don't know, like 10 games, like $300 worth of games or whatever it was. And I say that just to demonstrate, I think we think there must be some crazy sales funnel and I must need to spend a lot of money on ads and it's got to be really complicated and there's like this one word, if I say it, then that's going to get someone to buy. And I think what we can see here is no, like all that stuff can be helpful, sure, but really at the core of it, relationships and actively going out and selling because he believed in what it was he was selling. Does that make sense? I cannot like stress the magic of relationships enough. Everything in your business gets easier when you see and when you focus on building those relationships first and foremost. Like, that is like the biggest sales secret that isn't a secret. That and believe in what it is you're selling. Let's see. Did I have any other notes here with this? I think the other thing here with relationships, I think that's really helpful too. And this just comes back to selling from a place of integrity and how selling can be serving. Again, because my boyfriend believed in what he was selling, he knows that these are great things. And because he built relationships with people and because he was actively selling, then when someone came that he knew that he had a relationship with came in, and because he knew his product so well, he's played those games, he loves them, then when someone bought 5 games, he was able to figure out what other games they might like and might have missed and let them know, hey, you probably saw this, but this game, and this game, you probably really love it. Or, oh, I remember you also have a 5-year-old son. This game he would probably love because my son loved that game when he was 5. Do you see how all of that, like, that is selling? Because then someone on the other side is like, oh, yes, let me buy those. That's how you sell more. And that is all based on what? That's relationship building. That's being of service. That's knowing someone. That's actively selling and letting someone, like, know what they might be interested in. And all of that is possible because at the core, relationships and being really bought into and believing what you're selling. Does that make sense? As I take a sip of water, let me know if you have questions. I know I always ask if this makes sense, but I want to make sure. If y'all have questions, you feel free to ask questions. So ask away if you have any questions. All right, we talked about actively selling. We talked about the power of free. We've talked about a lot of these here. So let me know if we need to re-list any. We'll close with 2 here that I think are part and parcel of the same piece, that are really important parts of the sales process and selling. Stephanie says, hey, I'm so late. I will go back and get the replay later. Courtney says, hi, Kim. Hi, Courtney. Yay. I've got so many good people on here today. Thank you for hanging. Stephanie, totally fine that you're here late. That's what the replay is for. I mean, I missed you at the beginning, but I'm glad to have you now. You'll definitely have to catch the beginning and let me know if you have any questions when you're watching. Courtney says, ditto. I'm so happy to have you here now. I've got good faces on here. So let me know if you have questions, and then I'll try to recap some of what we talked about as well. But just to catch you all up, and for people on the replay too, if you're jumping in now later, we're talking all about what actually goes into selling. And I'm using a case study of my boyfriend, actually, who's been selling board games, because I think sometimes it's just really helpful to see this outside of our own industries. But he's been selling them online. He sold a shit ton, excuse my French, in the last week. And I've just kind of used him as a case study of like, what did he do really well here? And it really hits on some core principles of selling and buying psychology that I just think are fascinating. I think it's just so cool to see how this is just so universal. And just kind of to like recap what we're talking about, it's like we can see how this works. If this works for selling board games, if this works in the online space, whether you're selling a service, like whether you have a service-based industry or you're selling soap on a rope, like these are just really core principles to sales. And this is the difference between what we were talking about is like posting something and feeling like it's hearing crickets, and like some of what goes into actively selling and having people want to buy and throw money at you. So the 2 I'll close on, and you've probably heard me talk about this before, especially if any of you all have watched my lives before, but he followed up with people, and then he also followed up with people with their purchases because he made it about more than that sale. So these are kind of 2 different things. I'll talk about the following up piece first, as a general follow-up. I I know I've said this before, so don't hop off. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it till my face is blue, because this is probably the number one thing I talk to clients about when it comes to sales conversations. Well, maybe not the number one. One of the top things I'm chatting with clients about all the time is the power of following up. And I will give you this stat again. Most sales are made after the 5th follow-up. Most people don't follow up, or they only follow up once or twice. Those are the stats. That's not me. That is just because what we were talking about at the beginning. Remember, I said humans suck at making decisions. Humans suck at making decisions. Humans are busy and they suck at making decisions, and they have a lot in their face and a lot to choose from. Follow-ups are magic. Something my boyfriend did really well with this is when we were talking about how people could put kind of in an offer and there would be a pending offer. He followed up with people to see where they were at, and he really followed up with that sense of urgency we were talking about to let them know from a place of integrity, only if this was true, if someone else was interested in the game, if someone else wanted to buy it, if that was going to go away. And he really was there to like follow up and have those conversations. And I cannot tell you how many games were sold that I know for a fact would not have been sold, because we're talking also about, like, yes, these are important, they're board games, but we're living in the middle of a time where what is top of mind for people right now, even people who are obsessed with board games, is not how do I jump on a board game sale, someone's selling games before they move. It's like there's 100 other things that pop up for someone. And these are also all games that every single one of those people really, really wanted. They just got freaking busy, or they were in indecision, or they started making a decision and then someone called them. And so I know for a fact, part of the reason 125 games went out the door in a week is because he actively sat. I saw him like all day. He was hustling. This was like a full-time job for a second, but he like actively sat and followed up with every single pending order. That is why, that is a big part of why so many games sold. That is also a part of active sales. Tiffany says, do they still have soap on a rope? You know what is really funny? I don't know where it went. Because we've been selling furniture and packing things up, I literally found soap on a rope. Do you guys ever put soap in your like dresser drawers to make your clothes like just have like a nice fresh smell, so they don't get that musty smell? I literally found, we have soap in a rope in like this really beautiful little bag. I found soap in a rope, which is what made me think of it. So Tiffany, apparently they still have soap in a rope, though I could not tell you how old that soap in a rope is. Tiffany says there is money in the follow-up. There is gold in the follow-up. I will say this until my face turns blue over and over again. This will not be the last time you hear this from me. There is money in the follow-up. There is gold in the follow-up. I cannot tell you how many of my dear clients that I absolutely adore working with are my clients because I have followed up with them numerous times. Numerous times. That's your job as a business owner, especially as a service provider. I always see like following up shows you care. And when we think about the board game, like the case study of the board games, 125 games in a week, that's a lot of games to go out the door. Again, that was directly linked to those follow-ups. I didn't have him do the numbers on those. I should have asked how many games he thinks came from following up. I'd bet it's over half, if not more. And then the other piece to this, and this goes back to that relationship building part I was talking about. So for those of you who are hopping in a little bit later on, we were talking about the importance of relationships when it comes to sales and how much of your sales and the money in your business is tied directly to the degree of relationships you have with people, which is why at the end of the day, marketing and selling, it's really all about relationships and relationship building. And if you can think about it that simply, it makes everything less noisy. It's about building relationships, building that know, like, and trust. Something my boyfriend did, again, I don't think maybe it's because I talk about this all the time. I'd like to think it just rubbed off. I think he's just I think he's naturally really good at sales and doesn't realize it. I don't think this is something he even realizes such a beautiful thing to do. But something he did is he followed up after people got games, paid for them, went home with them. Instead of just being like, cool, peace out, I just made a lot of money, he followed up with people to make sure they were happy with the game, to make sure it had all the pieces. In fact, someone messaged him, and a lot of these games have like hundreds of little pieces. There was one piece missing in a game. And I think this just speaks to relationship building and like a big part of sales. Instead of being like, you got this game that's worth a lot of money at a good deal, it's missing one little tiny piece that you don't actually need. I think that would be such an easy thing to do for anyone. Because he cared, and because he cares about relationship building, and because he cares about the integrity of what he's selling, he went and scoured the internet. I'm not kidding y'all. He like found someone online is selling extra pieces to this board game and went and bought one cube to mail to this person. It cost like 39 cents for this, the cost of postage, but it was like, there was a whole lot of effort that went into like going and finding this one little gray cube. This is a specific specification for this one game, finding someone online who is selling that, which is so random, connecting with them, buying it, getting this other person's address, paying for it to send this thing off, right? Like we can all agree, like that's a whole lot of extra steps. And that is what I want you to hear, because that is a big part of sales. What I find happens is we get so concerned with just needing to make a sale and book a client that we forget that sales is a process. If you have a business that you want to be sustainable, it's not just about making a sale. It's about making and keeping a sale. And it's about keeping a sale and having someone be so happy they give you that social proof we were talking about so you can get that word of mouth marketing. Because it's all about relationships, right? That's how business gets really, really easy, when you care so much about making and keeping a sale and treating people well and building those relationships that you serve people above what they expect, that they sing your praises and they send you clients, right? Word of mouth clients or customers. Like that's, I'm like futzing with my hair because it's so humid in here. Right? Like, can we all agree? Like that's the dream. That's what makes business so easy. One of the reasons my business feels so easy is like that I get a lot of word of mouth clients. That's a beautiful, I'm so grateful. Thank you for everyone who refers me, but that is such a wonderful, beautiful thing. But that's also not by accident. And I think we can see with the board game situation here, what he's doing there, when you follow up afterwards, when you care for your people, and it's not just about making the money, it's not just about booking the client, it's not just about selling, you're deepening that relationship, you're showing you care, you're following the sales process through all the way to the end, not just to the point of transaction. Following it through all the way to the end, that's how you keep a sale. That's how you get less people returning. That's how you get less complaints. That's how you get someone saying, holy shit, you just searched the US to find a little cube for me and sent it to me. You're amazing. I'm gonna go tell 3 friends how awesome you are and that they should go check out your board game sale, right? If you're a service-based provider, when you go above and beyond that way, that's when someone is looking in a Facebook group for, I don't know, whatever everyone on here sells, but let's use virtual assistant as an example. If you're a virtual assistant and you're going above and beyond, that's when people are like looking for people. That's when someone wants to refer you or reach out to their friend and let them know like, hey, you should check this person out. That's also how you sell. And that is following up after the sale and really closing out that sales process. I say it's like, give a fuck and show people you give a fuck. That is a part of selling. And I say this because I think it's so easy, again, to think, no, sales has to be this thing where it's like, I need an MBA, and it's like sales funnels, right? Like, I think most people come into the online space, they think that's what selling is. And we can see so much of it is probably, if you're heart-centered and you're here, what comes to you naturally. And it might just be about remembering, oh, I just get to give myself permission to do the things that come to me naturally, like it comes to my boyfriend naturally, that allow me to show up and show I care, and to really build those relationships and see them through to the end. That is how you sell, and that's how you keep sales and continue to create sustainability in your business. Let me see these comments, and then I will close this out. Courtney says, many consult calls I have seen to go great, and then despite the 4 to 5 follow-ups, I hear crickets. Getting better about bringing up things they might be a mindset block for them. Courtney, you always bring the best things to the lives. This is when we were talking about following up. So I think a few things here. I think this is just such a great example that part of what I think is really powerful with following up is remembering that when we're in a sales conversation with someone, the whole idea is like, I always see sales, heart-centered sales. That's how my concept of sales. I really see it as helping people come to a decision to move towards what it is they want. We were talking about at the beginning how humans suck at, we just suck at making decisions. And so if we can think about sales as people suck at making decisions, how can I really help and empower the person in front of me to make a decision to move towards what it is they want? Not to say yes or no. I think sometimes we think good sales is always getting a yes. And I honestly think if you're always getting a yes, there's probably some stuff coming up there. So I really think about follow-ups. If we can like start to think about it, and Courtney, I'm not saying this is what's going on, but I think this is just a great example when it comes to follow-ups. I think we can start to think of follow-ups as, this is really my opportunity to serve the person in front of me, to help them come to a decision. Because right now, if they haven't said yes or no, they're in indecision. So this is my opportunity to help someone in front of me really get clear on what it is they want and make that decision. I used that white t-shirt example at the beginning. I was like indecision over buying white t-shirts because being human. But if people target me and send me enough things, what's great is it helps me decide, am I gonna buy those freaking white t-shirts or not? And so I think we can see follow-ups as, because I think we can release some of the pressure that way. When we're trying to like get a sale, it puts a lot of pressure on the sales process. And I think that can a lot of times be felt on the other side. When we can release that pressure and really see it as, my job here is to help someone make a decision, and see follow-ups from that place, I think sometimes that can open up follow-ups in a whole new way. And again, Courtney, I'm not saying that that's necessarily what's happening, but your comment really made me think of that, and I think it's just a great thing to touch on. And then the other thing that I will say that I think is so powerful with what you're saying is, when you're doing your side of the sales process and following up that much, you also know as a business owner, you've done everything in your power. I think the biggest thing for entrepreneurs, like that we never want to be in that place of, is like, oh, what would have happened if I had followed up? What would have happened if I had spoken to that objection? What would have happened if I had leaned into that mindset block, like Courtney said? Like, what would have happened if, not being clear on like what would have happened? And I think like that goes into that active selling piece. When you know you're actively selling and you're throwing everything at it, then you get to release and let go and know, now it's up to the other person to decide. I can lead a horse to water, and now I've done my part. And I think that's the beautiful thing with what Courtney is saying. It's like, yes, you might hear crickets, in which case a lot of times that's something that's going on for the other person. We can do a live on objections and stuff like that too. What happens when you hear crickets? I'm personally a big fan of calling out the crickets, quite honestly. If someone is ghosting me, it happens, y'all. It's, especially if you sell high ticket offers, it is scary for people to invest. I think that's a really helpful thing to remember. Like, remember the last time you bought something expensive. It can be really scary for people. And so hearing crickets is a pretty normal, not normal, I shouldn't say that, but it happens when people are in fear. Sometimes it has to be really powerful to lovingly call it out. But I'm like going down a rabbit hole here and taking us off topic. But I think the more important piece here is, you can really feel good when you're seeing your process through to the end, to know I'm seeing my process through to the end, and now it's just up to the person in front of me. The other thing I will say for everyone here that maybe is helpful to hear, I have absolutely had people who are a great fit for the work I do, who are a yes, and then ghost because they're scared. And I've done my follow-up process, seen it through to the end, and that's fine. Everyone's at a different place in their journey. It's fine. People get scared. My work is expensive. I get that. Like, it's a big investment. And here's something that's helpful to know. And I've absolutely had people come back literally a year later and hire me. And I think that's just a helpful thing for everyone to hear. Like, if you're in business and you're in business because you love what you do and you're in business for the long game, I think seeing some of these things, like we're talking about relationship building, seeing some of the sales process as the relationship building and building that know, like, and trust, and not taking it personally, and just knowing, like, if they're meant to be your client or meant to buy your product, whatever it is you sell, it is fascinating how if you can stay in your power, if you can do your part, if you can speak your truth, if you can see your sales process through to the end, people are going to say yes now, and there's absolutely going to be people who will come back around later. And part of the reason for that is you're going to have built that relationship with them. And because it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with what's coming up for them. Some people just aren't ready, and that's okay. So let me know if that makes sense, but I've had that happen more than once. I think 2 clients I can think of are an example of that. And that's just a great thing to know. I've also had many people like need to put a pause and then like come back later. Super normal. And I say that just to kind of what we were talking about at the beginning, the whole like, if I build it, they will come mentality that I think just really gets people in their head thinking they're doing something wrong, and then they sabotage and stop their sales process. and just really seeing it like it's not if you build it, they will come. It's if you build it and believe in it and market it and show up and follow up, they will come. And then they will come, and then they'll come in hordes. And people will say it's because you built it, but it's because of those other pieces that people aren't seeing behind closed doors. Okay, let me see. I went off on a rant there. Courtney says, yes, pressure, especially when they totally ghost you. I'd rather hear the no. Courtney, I so feel you on that. I'm like trying to think of how to address that one, because I think there's so many thoughts I have around that. I'm a big believer in that. Like, I would so much rather like someone come to that decision. And I think the thing that I always try to remember from the selling side is to come from that place of compassion of everyone's doing the best they know how with wherever they're at. And sometimes people stuff gets triggered for them when they're going through the process of trying to invest in something, especially when money's involved. A lot can get triggered for someone if they want to buy something. Fear is getting triggered because they're in scarcity. They feel like they can't afford it. They don't trust themselves. They're worried their business is going to fail. And you fill in the blanks. And so, because I'm the same exact way, I'm like, come on, I just spent time with you. This is kind of rude. Why are you not replying? And I try to just have that compassion with everyone's doing the best they know how. Something's probably being triggered. And I think for me, that helps me just to release some of that. And I know I said this earlier, and I, at a certain, like, if I'm on follow-up 5 and someone's ghosting and not replying and not saying no, I'm a very big fan of sending an email where I'm like, hey, I'm surprised I haven't heard from you. Like, what's going on? And I think that's perfectly okay to do if you've been in a process with someone that has signed up to be in that process and in that dance with you. Stephanie says, right. Stephanie says, on a follow-up call or email, do you simply ask what is their objection? Well, it kind of depends, Stephanie. So one of my personal beliefs, I do my best on a sales call to really get clear on what's coming up for someone. I always want to do my best to know what really is going on before we get off the phone. That way I can address it in follow-ups, or address what I think is coming up and to have that conversation. Like I ideally, obviously I can't like force someone to share things with me, but I ideally am not going to get off a phone call with someone and not really be clear on what's coming up for them around like what's their thing under the thing. So for me, yes, like I'll want to ask, but depending on what's going on, I'm going to ask in different ways. And I really want to get clear on like, if their objection is I don't have enough time, or if their objection is I don't have enough money, or if their objection is, I don't know, I need to finish a course first. Like, I want to find out, like, what is that really about? Because rarely is it ever about the thing they're saying. It's usually about whatever's underneath that. Or they're not clear on how my service, how my program can support them. And then I want to know that so that I'm addressing the right thing on the call and also when I'm following up. That way, when I'm following up, we're having a conversation about what's really going on. And then I also want to know with people like where we need to leave it. Sometimes people are a yes, or they need to go, run their finances or check with their husband or something like that. And sometimes it's as simple as that. And then I'm following up just as a loving, like, hey, like I want, do you have any questions? A lot of times I really want people I work with to feel very, sold on working with me and comfortable working with me. So I'm big on questions. So a lot of times follow-ups are also just, I'm assuming it's a yes, like we've had that conversation. They're just, doing their due diligence or thinking over the decision. And so a lot of times the follow-up will also just be to check in, see if they have any questions, if there's anything I can support them around as they're going, they're making their decision. Let me know if that makes sense, Stephanie. Courtney says, would it be tacky to add mindset type questions to my pre-call questionnaire? No, I'm not sure what you mean in terms of like specific questions, but I don't see how that would ever be tacky. I think, I always think about a pre-call questionnaire like in two ways. Like, one, it's just a great space for the person who's getting on the call, I think it's great for us as service providers to see what someone shares, but I really think it's such an opportunity for someone who's going to get on a call with you to really get clear of their thoughts, to get clear on what's coming up. It makes it easier, I think, for them on the call and to see what they want to share with you. I think it also helps them not have skin in the game, but it's sort of like, if I'm going to go through and answer all those questions, like I'm going to just show up on a call in a different way than if not. So I think adding questions that help someone start thinking about some of the stuff that's coming up for them, especially if that's something you might be supporting them with, I'm always a big a big fan for that, because it's not like they're going anywhere. So I don't think there's anything tacky about that. Courtney says, such as, are they facing any mindset blocks preventing them from taking decision-making steps in their business? I think there's a way to ask that question without, because I think, hold on, I need a sip of water. I love where you're going with that. I think there's a way to ask that question that is a little more open-ended. I think most people aren't always aware of the mindset blocks they have, quite honestly. And a lot of times, all of us do this. We're really attached to the story we have around whether we want to call it an excuse or an objection or limitation. Most of us like cling on to those for dear life. If I'm going to hire a personal trainer and my objection is I don't have time, I really believe I don't have time. So if I get a question about like, what's my mindset block around it, like, I don't think it's mindset block. I don't think it's that I have an excuse that I don't want to show up. I think it's that like, I actually don't have time. So I think it's not that that's tacky. I think it might just not, most people aren't aware of that until you're talking about it. But I do think you could ask them, like, you know, what mindset challenges are they having, or like what fears or insecurities, or what mindset, like what's coming up for them with their business, like just to get a general idea, like a more open-ended question, because how we do one thing is how we do all things. For most of us, like whatever's coming up generally around business is also going to come up with that objection. We are humans that just operate in patterns. So if my thing is I don't have enough time, whatever that's really about and whatever that pattern is, like that's just going to keep showing up in different places. So I think that will give you the same, it will help them create that clarity and give you the same clarity in a way that might actually garner the answer. Does that make sense, Courtney? Oh my God, caught you live finally. I always am worried I'm going to pronounce your name wrong. Is it, we did this before. Aya, I think it's, tell me, because I really want to make sure I get your name right. And I know you taught me this on another live, but that's how bad my memory is. I think it is. So happy to have you. You're catching me at the very end, so you'll have to watch the replay, but I'm really glad I get to catch you for a moment. Courtney, let me know if that's making sense. I think in general with those prep questions, for if you're doing like a sales call or something like that and you have those questions, the more open-ended, and on sales conversations as well, really anytime you're having these sales conversations, you're asking the question before, the more open-ended your questions can be, the more that's always going to serve you. The more there's almost like the answer baked into the question, or it's just like a yes or no, the more it really limits that opportunity for exploration. So I think that's just a helpful thing to keep in mind. So same if you're on a call, it's like even if you're ending a sales call, the more you can keep that open-ended in terms of like what feels like the next best step for you versus do you want to buy from me? Do you want to buy from me? Or, which no one would actually say that, but like, are you ready to invest, for example? That's just like a yes/no question, and it really shuts down the conversation versus what feels good to you right now, what feels like it would, how you'd like to move forward. That keeps it more open-ended and really allows someone to communicate whatever's coming up for them or whatever they're thinking about in any direction. Yeah. Was I close? Thank you for doing the yeah, right? I think that's right. Thank you for the phonetic spelling. Names are important, y'all, I think. My middle name is Faikia, which is why, and my mom's name is Shaukia. So and my last name's Argetsinger. So I grew up with people always mispronouncing names. And so I'm very big on, I always want to do my best to pronounce names correctly because I have spent a lifetime of being called everything but what my name actually is. Thanks, Kim, Courtney says. Awesome. Glad that resonated. Do y'all have any other questions for me before we hop off? I'll give you a little recap on what we chatted about before I do. I'm just pulling up my notes here. See if I can remember the recap, because I said I was going to give you all 5 things for selling, and we did more than 5. But as a recap, we talked about the whole concept that if you build it, they can come. Basically, as a bunch of BS, it's a really wonderful line in a movie, but when it comes to business, the more you can detach from that mindset, the more it will serve you in business. Because if you build it, they can come, it literally is backwards from how it actually works in business. How it works in business, because if you build it, they can come, it's all about asking, like it's that mentality of if this is good enough, people will come in and buy from me. And really and truly in business, so much of selling and what this is really about is you have to believe first it's good enough, and then it's your job to communicate what is so awesome about your product and go out and actively sell it. like if I had to boil this up into like one core concept, that is it. And so the more you can get out of that mentality of, if I'm good enough, people will figure it out from my one post and they'll like buy from me, and that will prove to me I'm good enough and I should be in business, and that's a sign from the universe. The more you can get out of that mindset and into the mindset of, no, I know this is good, and it's now my job to communicate that and actively reach out to people and to actively sell and market this, the more you'll see you bring in sales and money that reinforce the belief that it's absolutely good enough. And then we just talked about, we used my boyfriend selling board games because we're moving, rare board games as a case study and an example of just some really core concepts that I think help universally, whatever it is you're selling. And then I want to see the name thing. But as what we talked about first is just really being clear on your offer and having a clear way to articulate what it is you're selling. Stick to 3 offers or less. That was something we talked about just as a recap there. We also talked about some of those sales psychology pieces: urgency, scarcity, social proof. I said FOMO, but FOMO really is some of that scarcity piece, and starting to find ways from a place of integrity and from a place of truth to incorporate that into your sales. We talked about the energy. People can tell when you're lying. That's when sales get a bad rap. Don't be that gross person who's like making up that you have one spot left when that's not true. People can tell the difference. But these are all great things that you can use in your sales strategy when they're coming from a place of integrity. We talked about believing in his offer, knowing, and because of that, really knowing and believing and coming from this place of, I want to sell this because I know people are going to be so happy when they buy it, and bringing that energy. And then also really knowing the product, the games, so that you can really speak to and upsell and make other offers to people, because you know, hey, I know they like this other game that's like it, I can sell and add this offer on that allows you to sell more. So it's really just like being so sold on what you're selling and knowing it so well so you can sell more of it. We talked about leveraging the power of relationships. At the end of the day, the money in your business is tied to those connections and relationships. That's also why the longer you're in business, the easier business gets. It's not because like you need to be in business a long time to get results, y'all. Part of it is just, you just are going to build more relationships and stronger relationships the longer you're in business. And so just allowing marketing and sales to really boil down to, it's all about those relationships. And the more you can see that, the less complicated it gets, and the less you can get, you get wrapped around, I don't know, I need a 17 email funnel, and really seeing it as, no, this is all about how do I build those relationships? How do I really connect with people? And how do I leverage those relationships? Then we talked about the power of active selling. So we talked about there's passive selling and active selling in sales. This is a concept I made up, but I really believe it's true. You need both when you're selling. But so often when we're in that, if I build it, they will come mentality, we're resting on passive sales, just posting something, just putting something on the website and hoping people will come. And you really need that combination of passive sales plus active sales. Reaching out to someone you had a call with 6 months ago that popped into your mind who might like your offer, following up with someone, etc. And then we talked about the 2 kinds of follow-ups. Follow up with your people after you've had that initial offer you've made. Most sales are made after the 5th follow-up. Follow up, y'all. And then we talked about following up with someone after they've purchased from you, and not just having them be a number. And again, thinking about this as an ongoing relationship that is going to be someone who will buy from you again, who will refer you, who will be that social proof. That is everything we got from my boyfriend selling board games. So thank you, Eric, for giving us a case study. I think there's quite a lot there. If you take even just a few of these core concepts and apply them to your sales, you'll see that they will really help you to sell more, and sell more from a place of integrity that feels good without like needing some weird, I don't know, something you think that someone knows in a course that they're selling. I hope that was helpful. Let's see. With the J sound, not the I or the Y. Oh gosh, I'm so worried I'm saying this wrong. I might, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to message you on Facebook, and this is annoying, but I'm going to ask you, would you mind leaving me a voice memo of how to pronounce your name? Because I really want to pronounce it correctly. And that would mean a lot to me. I know that's a 2-minute effort, but that way I can hear it, and that way I can pronounce it correctly the next time. Thank you, because I want to say your name correctly. Tiffany says, thank you so much, Kim. So my pleasure. Thank you all for hanging. I hope this was helpful. If you're watching the replay as well, let me know if you have any questions. And if anyone wants any support with this, book a discovery call with me. I'm amazing at mindset and sales. It's what I love supporting my clients with, so they can sell more in a way that feels really good to them. And so they're not getting in their own way. I have limited availability. This is true urgency, not urgency. This is true scarcity. I do have limited availability. So if you are interested, I would recommend booking a call sooner rather than later. And okay, thank you. Yes, thank you for doing that for me. And if you don't have any other questions, y'all, I will see you next week. We'll have another live on Tuesday and we'll dive into another topic. I love y'all a lot. Bye.